Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara's at work, and today we are reviewing the Twosun Ts264. I really like this knife. I've got a lot of clips to put in this video on how to sharpen this big belly, all the way down to the way it cuts, and the good and the bad. Let's get right into it. Now, I do want to say really quick that I did ask a question in the last video, and you guys gave me a lot of phenomenal answers. I love the answers you guys gave me. But I wasn't necessarily looking for video ideas. I was looking for parts of my new reviews that I'm doing that I could touch on a little bit better. You know, the parts of the videos that you guys really like the most, you know, parts I can maybe, you know, put a little bit better content into. Now, I love that you guys gave me lots of great video ideas. I have tons of them, and a lot of them are from you guys, so I appreciate that, and thank you guys for doing that, because you guys gave me a lot of amazing video ideas. Now, this knife is not a big knife. It really isn't. It's a 7.5-inch knife with a 3.25-inch blade. Basically the same size as the Benchmade Bug Out. So if you know the Benchmade Bug Out, you know the size of this. Now this one's obviously a little bit more girthier, but they're relatively the same size. Also, the Twosun TS195, which is also a Mazwan Mokhtar design, which is the same as this knife. These are both Mazwan Mokhtar designs. It's just a little tiny tip bigger than the 264. Here it is next to the CJRB Mini Feldspar, or small Feldspar, which you can see isn't much far off from the Twosun. It is a little bit smaller, but not far off. It's not a really big knife, but it does add a couple things in that Twosun wasn't doing before, like thumb studs. And the thumb studs are like the stop pin, a lot like Hinder's, where the thumb stud is the stop pin, which adds to strength. Why does it add to strength? Because it puts pressure on the frame. So side to side to get play, it's hitting and holding tight on the frame. So it's really solid. I mean, this thing is rock solid. I like that about this knife. There's a lot of amazing things about this knife. But there is one major fail that Mazwan Mokhtar has that we will get into here in just a moment. Now, I did sharpen this, and I want to talk about using this, cutting with it, and sharpening it. I'm going to throw in a video of how it cuts, because the geometry on this thing is super thin. 10 to 13 thousandths behind the edge. Woo! It has a pretty thick blade stock, but very thin behind the edge. Let's look at how it cuts. Box is all from the same box. All this cardboard is from the same box. Now this thing goes through cardboard very, very well, even with the little bit of tape on it. Some directions of the cardboard cut easier than others. But because this thing is so thin, it just blazes through things. Now, I'm basing this off of how hard I got to hold on with this hand as I'm going through. Very, very nice. Now, if I compare that to, or I kind of compare it to the Bug Out, the Bug Out is very comparable in the way they cut, or how much strength I have to put into this hand to get through. Now, the Twosun's a lot a lot thinner behind the edge than the Bug Out, but the Bug Out has a thinner blade stock. Yeah, they're very comparable. Since this doesn't have a tip, it mostly has a belly. You don't really get utility cuts with it, but since the belly is so thin right here, you can use the belly to do your cutting. My thumb is messed up. I don't have a lot of strength in it to hold this down, but as you can see, you use it to go through. So now that's not going to be the best, but with slicing, it's amazing. Push cuts, really good, especially since you have this little notch right there you can really lock on. I mean, that feels very good to do. Like, I mean, it's just so effortless. And I'm kind of using the back part right here and just kind of rolling the cut. Now, this little bit of paracord is to replicate bigger or thicker paracord, but the belly of the knife is really good for doing these little cuts like this. You know, you have a lot of leverage behind the belly. But one thing you got to watch out for with the belly is it slipping out. So when you get behind a rope, you really want to make sure you have good ergos with the knife you're pull cutting rope with. You want to make sure you get it on the flat part and go straight back. Make sure you're not putting leverage at an angle. If you're putting leverage at an angle like this, you have a good chance if that is a plastic strap or certain types of rope that it's going to come up and just right out. So make sure you hook it with the flat and go straight back. And that's where ergos and leverage comes into play really good. And when sharpening big bellies like this, there's a couple ways you can do it when doing freehand. Now, you can either, when you have your angle, you can either go across the stone, and then as you go farther across the stone, you're going to want to start getting this belly. You can just lift till you get to the tip, just like that. So you're just going straight across, and as you go farther, you're going to give it lift, 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 but while you're holding the angle. The one problem with that is a lot of times you tend to lean back when you're lifting. So you'll be going across the stone, and as you're coming up like this, you tend to lift back like that. Now, there are times when you might have to do a little bit of that just to get the very tip. So there's another way where when you're going across the stone, and I'll go the other direction and show you too, you can just turn it and lift. So you're turning and lifting at the same time while you're keeping that angle. Those are the two ways I like to do a belly. Now, there are times when I just go right across the stone, like I said, and I just lift. But what tends to happen sometimes is right here in the belly tends to get an angle that's bigger than the rest of the edge. So it'll look exaggerated. And the reason why is because you're leaning back that little bit. You're doing that little bit of tilt back. Very slightly, but it only takes a little bit to change the whole angle. So you got to be careful to watch for that when you're doing these big bellies. Now, if I'm going back this direction, it's going to look like this. If I can do the where I just lift. So I'm going across the stone. Now I'm lifting, but I'm maintaining that same angle. I'm going across the stone, but now I'm lifting and I'm maintaining that angle. Now, like I said, when I get to the very tip, there might be a spot, if it's not getting hit, where I got to go like this, and then this is the only time where I'll tilt back just a little bit. It's so subtle that you won't even pick it up if I do it, but I'm trying to exaggerate a little bit to show you. Now, the other way is where you go across the stone and you turn it. Now, as I'm turning, I'm lifting, lifting, lifting. I really like this way. I mean, I do both ways, but I really like this way. It really helps me keep my belly from getting an exaggerated bevel, where the bevel's a little bit bigger than the rest of the edge. And like I said, all I'm doing is holding my angle. As I'm turning, I'm lifting, lifting, lifting until I get to the tip. Now, same thing, right at the tip, I might give it just a slight bit of lean back. But basically, as long as you can hold your angle and keep doing that over and over, you will get a consistent bevel all the way up and down your blade and around your big bellied blades. So now that we've got the sharpening out of there, let's get to these ergos. And then we will talk a little bit about that choil here in a second. So the ergos are so good. This thing is contoured so nicely. It's so round and just soft. It's very soft. That's the best way I can say it. The clip is even nice and contoured. Feels very good in the hand. This little spot right here, nice and soft for your finger. With the jimping right there, you really can lock in right there. Even in reverse pull cuts, you really feel comfortable. Your hands just wrap right around there. Super comfortable knife. And the carbon fiber, oh, I don't know if I said this, M390 titanium and carbon fiber. Sorry if I did not say that. Now, the titanium has beautiful milling, and then this is a great cut of carbon fiber. The fibers just really, let me close this thing, really pour out of it. When you get it in the right lighting, like look at the gray fibers. I mean, it's just beautiful. Look at that. What a great cut. And it's so soft and perfectly lined up. Love it. T8s all the way around. Love that. The only T6 is on the lock bar insert. Even the thumb studs, they are removable by T8s. Now, this thing is it's not an integral, just so you know. It does have a seam, as you can see, which the centering lines right up with, so you can really see how centered this thing is. It is so centered. It's great. Let's talk about this action. So it does have ceramic bearings that run on a racetrack. Now, let's look at a picture of what that looks like, because that adds a lot to this action. It also has a detent ramp. The detent ramp, we'll show a picture of the detent ramp, and what that does is when it's open, it helps it when it closes, when the detent over here hits the tang of the blade, it helps it right there get up on the blade, so it's super, super smooth. Now, the thumb studs, this thing has great thumb stud action, amazing thumb stud action. It's a lot, or not a lot, but it's kind of similar to the Microtech SOCOM Elite, where you have this little chamfer right here on both sides, and you can just line right up with the stud. Very minimal pressure, and it flies out with a thwack. You can get it from down here too and just go straight up, but it's so nice to just go from the side and just barely give yourself just a little flick. It's so easy. The reverse flick, super nice. This thing's very, very nice. The action is amazing. It's super fidgety. I mean, you can just sit here and reverse flick and thumb flick all day. Now, you can also reverse flick from down here very easily. Now, even though the detent is set up perfect and fine-tuned for thumb stud action, it still is in there pretty decent. Now, I can get it out if I want to by swinging it, but it's perfect. Now, when you unlock it, the lock bar is very easy to get to, very comfortable because of how thick the blade is. Now, they didn't give you a cutout or anything, but you don't really need it. You can just let it fall and hit your finger, and then it'll just basically drop shut once it's really broken in, but with very, very light influence, or shaking influence. Like, you don't barely need to attempt. Now, if you do, it'll just slam shut. Now, if you do unlock it and you do hit that detent ball, it's very easy to push past because of the detent ramp, or you can just push shut with your hand. But it is super smooth, and the sounds are so nice. Very, very nice. Now, the slow roll is also very nice, and like I said, the reverse flicking is super duper easy off the thumb stud. Now, some people look at this and say, man, it looks like it was supposed to be a flipper tab. That is not true. That is the lock face, and the lock face geometry is very nice. It is locked up, rock solid, like I said before. Now, The Ergos, man, are just so good on this thing. But what are some bad things? So we have just a couple. This clip. This is a huge fail, in my opinion, by Mazuan Mokhtar. He's used it on a couple of his designs, including the Twosun Ts195. It's basically a titanium ball instead of a ceramic ball like some designs use. And the problem is the tension is so strong. There's no bend. Like this is the TRM Atom, but like this, how it has spring. There's no spring to it. It's just super strong. So I'm going to show it in and out of the pocket. Now, if you notice, going in the pocket, it kind of pushes the pocket down. You can get it in still, but it pushes the pocket down a little bit, unless if you grab the seam of the pocket and pull it tight. Then you can, put it in. Now, taking it out, it kind of grabs the pocket. It's not necessarily pulling strings out of your pocket, but it's pretty tight. And, it kind of pops on the way out. So you can once it's in the pocket, it carries great. But, getting in and out of the pocket, it's not the best. It does work, so I'm not saying that it just destroys your pocket, but it's kind of annoying. Now, I got this knife from Lavender Pants 86. Thank you, bud, for selling this to me. I really appreciate it, and also for giving me such a great deal. We'll talk about the price in a second. He did mod this clip a little bit. Now, I'm going to mod it a little bit more and try to make it a little bit better, but I wanted to do the video with the way it is so you could see how it's working. Now, the price of this thing is kind of all over the board. When it first came out, it was going for about $160 to $200. Most people were paying about $190 when it first came out. Some places had them for $160. Now on eBay, the prices dropped a little bit, and you can get them from anywhere from $100 to $150. It just depends on your bidding. I paid $120, and then I gave Lavender Pants a little bit extra. I think I paid like $130 altogether, which to me was a phenomenal price. I was happy to pay it. From a lot of companies, a knife of this caliber would 100% be $300-400, without a doubt in my mind. Not a doubt in my mind. Now, Twosun does allow you to kind of set the price, so in that case, you can get this type of quality for a great deal. Now, this choil area, it's thick right here. So that's why they had to do that. What they're basically doing is the plunge is basically all of this. So you have to sharpen up the blade this way, kind of. Now, this is super thin behind the edge. Even all the way up here, it was only 15 thousandths behind the edge. So, I mean, it's going to be very easy to sharpen and very quick to sharpen. But when you do sharpen it, after this notch starts going away, you're probably going to want to put another notch there, which will prevent a smile. A smile is when you sharpen, it kind of starts sharpening up right here, and you can see the sharpening going around the corner. That's a smile. That's what sharpeners call a smile. Now, they could have just cut it out kind of like the Hinder, where it goes like that. But it's really not that big of a deal to me, but I would have liked to have seen them just kind of cut it out like that. Even though this is thin, it's still very comfortable. Now, they were kind of going for comfort with this one, because this is super comfortable right there. But I wouldn't have minded if they brought this up and just cut it out just a little bit more. Not that big of a deal, though, because this little sharpening tool is super easy to put back in there. So the next time I sharpen it, I'll just put my own little dent right there, which will be very easy with a file or a Dremel or anything like that. You can even get just a little hand file and do it yourself. The knife is great. I do really like the knife, and sharpening it was great. It sharpened up wonderfully. The price on it, I'm not mad about the price. And I like Mazuan Mokhtar's designs. His designs are just, they're great. They're very innovative. They're phenomenal designs. And this is a great example of what Twosun can do. It really is. Twosun did a great job on this. I do wish it had a different clip. That's my biggest complaint, is just that clip. Other than that, I mean, this thing's a winner. every day of the week, twice on Sundays. One more thing. So, the steel. Let's talk about that really quick. The M390 from Twosun. You're hearing lots of crap in the community how bad their S90V and their M390 is. Now, it's not great. It's really not. The cut tests are not doing as good as they could. But they haven't been using it for that long. Every single company did not do M390 good. Some of them are doing it better than they were when they started. But Twosun has not been doing it that long, and it is improving. It is getting better. Like, I've had zero problems with the M390. And to be honest, I can't tell that there's anything wrong with it. The only way to tell is if you're counting your cuts and then comparing it to another steel. So without doing that, it's still going to get great edge retention compared to a lot of steels, especially for the price you're getting it for, and the stain resistance and the strength. Now, sharpening it, no problems. I mean, it's sharpened up great, just like any great M390. So it's not like it's like putty or something. Some people talk as if because it got some low cut tests, which I understand. When you're paying premium prices, you want premium materials, but you're not paying premium prices here. I would understand if you were buying a Hinder or a Chris Reeves or something like that. You're paying for that steel to be done to, to perfection. Now, this does have less cuts than some other M390 would have or perform, but it also is performing better than some companies. So, you got to take it for what it's worth. They are improving it, but, you're also not paying $300. And you're still getting all the premium materials. Now, as time goes on, I guarantee, or I hope, let me say I hope, I can't guarantee that, but I hope they do improve it a little bit better, and I hope its cut tests do as good as their 14C28N, because their 14C28N is doing great. Their 12C27 is doing phenomenal. All their steels except for their S90V and their M390 are doing great. Everybody's D2 never did good. Name somebody's D2 that did good, because I can't think of any of them. Now, their D2 did just like everybody else's. So, I'm not hating on their steel at all. I will say that I'm hoping that they do improve it a little bit better. And it is improving. So I'm not saying it's not improving, because it is. But I hope it keeps improving. Now, I like this knife a lot. I think it is well worth the value. And you're still getting more cuts than you would if it was S30V or S35VN, as far as I know. But I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys to comment. Thank you guys to everybody that gives me a thumbs up. I love all of you. Peace.